Hello everyone, Russ of AquariumX here, and today I'm going to give you an update on the multi colony with specific regard to the fry. You can see one of them, the oldest one, at least the first one I discovered, right in the middle of the screen in front of that shell. And most of them are about that size. You can see over here one of them hovering above the shells below one of the adults, and right behind the mother there. The small one in the foreground there looks like she has perhaps some eggs. She may be gravid. There's the other fry just under her in the shell. And then let's go look over at the biggest clutch here. There are 6 fry here, as I think I may have indicated last time. See if I can get them into focus here. Yeah, I think you can see all 6 of them there. Quite a bit bigger than last time I showed them. Pretty excited about that. I had, I believe, something like 11 adults, and now I've got 9 fry, so nearly doubling the size of my colony. And I expect to see some more fry fairly soon. One complication is that now that I've removed the assassin snail from the colony, there are some bladder snails in here. Here's a shot of a couple of them. They seem to be living in the filter sponge and so on, and so it's hard to eradicate them completely. I need to miss just one egg mass, and then a few weeks later I have lots more snails. So that's been, kind of an issue. I'm wondering if those bladder snails are predating a little bit on the eggs. So I've been removing the snails when I find them, putting them either in my inler tank that has assassin snails in it, or into my Daphnia and Scud colony, because if I can get the snails to do well in there, that can be beneficial for that colony as well, although there's some problems with that because my Scuds seem to eat whatever snails I put in there, so we'll see how that goes. But I was just about to give these fish some food cocktail. This food cocktail contains, of course, the decapsulated brine shrimp cysts that I fed them in a video a couple of months back. I also included some Daphnia and Scuds that you can see zipping around, as well as a healthy dose of microworms. This is kind of representative of a lot of the food that I give them. I, of course, give them flake food as well, but I'm going to give that to them. You can see a couple of the Scuds already darting down towards the bottom. They're usually the first ones to hit. And then a cloud of everything else. And this really encourages them to get out and about and start foraging for food, especially the fry. So let's see what we can see here. So they start grabbing everything out of the water column. So if you decide you want to try multis, I have some tips for you if you'd like to try keeping these fish. They can be a little bit hard to get a hold of, but it is possible. Often you have to look online if you can't find them at a local fish store. Aquabit often has them, or places like that. But a couple of tips and a couple of links for you. In fact, in the description I have a link to the shells that I use. These are escargot shells, and I found a company that sells them for pretty cheap, and they're high quality shells. I've purchased, I don't know, probably about 100 shells from them, and they sell them quite cheaply. You can get a bag of 36 of them, so check out the link to that in the description. I also have a link to the decapsulated brine shrimp cysts that I use. And if you want to go with live brine shrimp, because there's really no better food for multi fry and multi adults than live brine shrimp, I have some links to that in the description as well. Some sand is good. This sand is a mixture of aragonite sand, often sold for use in marine aquaria. You can see how the fry are getting a little bolder as they tend to leave their shell beds a little further as they're hunting or foraging for food. Aragonite sand and pool filter sand. I got the pool filter sand at a local hardware store and the aragonite sand at a local fish store and mixed those up. The aragonite sand is good because it's a good buffer for the pH, since multis need a high pH, or at least they do better and breed better if the pH is fairly high. Like over 8 is ideal, although you can keep and breed them at lower pHs than that. And then I use the pool filter sand because it's kind of a rougher, coarser grain, which allows more water movement, so it's not going to get packed down. I think what I want to do is actually, oh, there's a rubber band in there. Should have taken that out already. What I want to do is actually remove some of the sand because it's pretty deep, as you can see in some areas. It's good for them to have the sand because then they can bury the shells that they don't want to use, and they can position the shells they do want to use and kind of shore them up the way they want, which is good. And as you can see, they've decided not to utilize all of their shells. You can see the shell in the top left of the screen. They've very nearly filled that up with sand. This one on the right side of the screen with the hole in it there, that they've nearly buried that one as well. But then the other ones, the ones that they want to use, they make sure the openings are positioned in a good way for them to be able to get in there. So basically, if you want to keep multies, you will need shells or something like that. Some people use PVC elbows, but I've never done that. You need some kind of substrate for the shells to go in, like the sand. And then the water temperature should be right between 78 and 82 Fahrenheit, somewhere in there. They need lots of small foods. I like to use omega-1 flakes in addition to the microworms, the decapsulated brine shrimp cysts, the Daphnia and the scuds that I give mine. And then at least a 10-gallon tank. And you know, some people say that you can use a really shallow tank, and you can. But I've noticed that mine tend to go pretty high up into the water column and will actually come up to the top to get food, especially when I feed flake. As you can see, it's not like they're just hugging the very bottom. This is especially true for the fish that are on the subordinate end of the hierarchy. They tend to go higher up in the tank for refuge. So I like to provide some height. That's why I have these in a 29-gallon. Seems to work fairly well. But they've been a lot of fun. I've had this colony, I think, for about 3 years and various iterations of it. Started it out in a 20-gallon tank, 20-gallon high, and decided to move it into this 29. And if you've been following, you notice that for a while I had an assassin snail in there, which was effectively eating the eggs and preventing breeding, but they're back in breeding mode again, which I'm excited about. And it appears that of the 8 fry that I detected when the fry were very small, every single one of them has reached a fairly advanced stage of development where they have started to wander about. Some of them look like they're actually starting to stake out or trying to search for shell territory of their own. So I have a lot more shells. I'm eventually going to put some more shells in here. What I may do, I've been contemplating doing this, is getting maybe 2 or 3 more multies from a different bloodline and putting those in at the same time that I put in maybe 60 or so more shells. I have about that many in storage, and I think that would be great. Probably remove some of this excess sand and just put a ton of shells in there and put the new multies in there at the same time so that the established territories of these multies in here are disturbed a little bit, which is really kind of necessary to do because the fish are so territorial. If I were to put 2 stranger multies in the tank, they would almost certainly be attacked and may very well be killed, and I don't want that. So I will probably have to rearrange and or add shells when I do that. And I think a bed of shells nearly covering the bottom of this tank would look pretty cool. I've thought about putting some rocks in too, just to break things up a little bit, make some visual barriers, both from an aesthetic standpoint and a practical standpoint to keep the fish from attacking each other. Maybe put a rock right there in the back, which would be right about in the focal point spot in the tank. I think that might look cool, and a few other smaller rocks around, kind of break things up. So let me know what you think about my multi colony and whether or not you would ever consider keeping multis. Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching today. I post videos every Wednesday and Friday, all on aquarium and vivarium pets. I'd like to give a special shout out to Limbu, who is one of my Patreon supporters and asked for a fish video. Hadn't done one in a while, and so this is for you, Limbu, and I hope you appreciate it, but I hope the rest of you also appreciate it as well. If you like this video, please rate it, share it with someone else who might like it. Please leave a comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe, and then click the bell icon so you don't miss my next video.